Hello everybody and welcome back. This is the 10 Decades of Makeup Part 2. This is the 1930s. If you didn't catch my last video, the 1920s makeup look, go ahead and check that out on my channel. Again, I'm going to be using modern techniques and products that I have available to be recreating a 1930s makeup and hair look. So let's go ahead and get into the video. So starting off with hair, I'm going to go ahead and take a comb. I'm using my son's little comb because I lost mine. I'm going to part it a little bit to the side. I'm going to be attempting to do some finger waves today and a shorter faux bob. I'm just going to spray the top of my hair with a little bit of water. And I'm going to add a bit of hair gel. You can use mousse or hairspray or anything you have that's going to kind of hold those hairs in place. Make sure you have some sort of clip or bobby pin available. If you have those kind of longer clips, those might work best. I don't have those right now, so I'm just going to be trying to use bobby pins. And you're going to take your comb and sort of bring it back, sort of pushing all the hairs back at once, holding it in place with your finger and bringing them back down. You can kind of see you have your first wave. Alright, so I have finished pinning this up on both sides. Hopefully you can kind of see what I've did. So I brushed it out, pinned it, brushed it in, pinned it out, pin, in, pin on both sides. I'm going to let that dry and kind of set while we move on to our next step. I'm taking my curling one. I'm going to be using the smaller end to make tighter curls. And I'm going to curl all of my hair. Alright, so I have finished curling my hair, except for the back. I'm going to brush through it to separate the curls and give it a bit more fluff. Alright, if you have shorter hair, you can definitely stop here, but because my hair's longer and I want to give it a bit of a kind of faux bob, I'm going to try something. I'm going to take these little elastics and I'm just going to tie it right on the end of my hair. I'm going to take a bobby pin, flip it up, and pin it under. I'm going to do the same for this side and the back. Okay, now all of that is pinned up. I'm going to spray it down with hairspray and then take out these bobby pins and see how those waves turned out. Alright, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a kind of close-up of how the hair turned out. I think the waves turned out pretty good. I could have gone a bit deeper with them. Hopefully they'll stay in. I put in enough hair gel, so they should. But here's how the hair turned out. Kind of the classic old Hollywood kind of fluffy bob with the waves. Alright, now that hair is done, we'll go ahead and move on to makeup. So makeup did differ a bit from the 20s to the 30s. It began to kind of soften up a bit, and they began to add a bit more color. The Great Depression started in 1929 and ended in 1933, so although there were a lot of hard times in the 30s, more towards the end of the 1930s, America was really starting to rebuild. I think the makeup was really starting to reflect that. So the main characteristics of the makeup showed a lot of similarities to the 1920s, and that they still kept pale faces and blushed cheeks, but the eyes were softened up a bit, added a bit more color. The Cupid's bow's lips were gone, and they started to add a bit more of the natural shape and fuller lips. So starting off with a VFX Pro Camera Ready Primer. The Skin Perfecting Beauty Balm in shade Light. Next, Full Coverage Liquid Concealer in shade Light. I'm going to be setting my face with the Face Perfecting Pressed Powder. And just like the 1920s, the kind of pale face was very in, so I'm not going to be doing any kind of contouring or highlight, but I will be using blush. This is the Tender Blush On in Rose Jam. I'm going to be applying this kind of to the apples of my cheeks, a bit less of a kind of round shape than the 1920s video. The heart-shaped face was very in the 1920s and kind of the desired face shape, so I am going to be keeping it more on the apples of my cheeks. And if you had a skinnier face, it was also very common to put a bit of blush on the tips of your ears to kind of widen the face, so I'm going to add a little bit there also. Now that blush is done, we'll move on to eyebrows. I'm going to be using the Brow Pomade in Dark Brown. Similarly to the 1920s, they did keep with the thin eyebrow shape, but a bit more of a natural shape instead of the straight and rounded end. So with this pomade, I'm just going to be extending the tails a bit, almost down to the corner of my eye, and just kind of clean up the shape a bit. Alright, so brows are done. So I've extended them and added a bit of shape without filling them in too much. So now we're going to move on to the rest of the eyes. In the 30s, they began to soften up the eyes a little bit, with adding in a bit more color to the eyeshadow, a bit more browns with eyeliner, and we even began to add a little bit of shimmer or gloss on the eyelids. So I'm going to pop a bit of concealer on the eyelids as a primer. And going in with the Glam Up Palette, I'm going to start off with Magnolia over the entire eyelid. To get kind of the larger doll eye effect that you see in classic Hollywood films, they like to keep the eyeshadow kind of more towards the inner corner of the eye. In the 1930s, they began to introduce more color to the eyeshadow, including blues, greens, and purples. So we're going to go in with a little bit of purple. We're going to go in with a little bit of the In Fuego, and we're going to bring that right into the inner corner here. You want to make kind of a teardrop shape, starting here and bringing it into the outer corner. Now we're just going to blend that in and kind of soften it across the whole lid. Okay, now we're going to go in with a tiny bit of shimmer. We're going to take a little bit of this gold tail just on our fingertips and place it right on the middle of our eyelid. We're going to line our lower lash line with Ashes. And then for the top lash line, I'll be using the Kajal Gel Liner. Right, now I'm going to curl my lashes and apply mascara. I'm going to be using the 3D Effect Mascara. To really get the effect of lifted eyes, I'm going to be keeping the mascara focused on the upper lash line and just lightly applying on the lower lash line. Alright, now that that is all done, we'll move on to lips. I'm using our lip liner in 223, and I'm going to be lining pretty much the natural shape of my lip. And then I'm going to be going in with our liquid matte lipstick. This is in the shade Nude Essence. Alright, so here is the finished 1930s look. I threw on some different clothes and some accessories. I love it. I had tons of fun doing this. I feel fancy, I feel glamorous. I want to go out on the town after a long evening working as a nurse at the institution, meet up with a man named George and dance the night away. So this is the finished look for the 1930s. I had a lot of fun. If you're not already following me on Facebook or Instagram, you can find me on both at Brooks Beauty Basics. All of the products I used will be linked down below. Feel free to check them out. As always, feel free to message me for any color matches, skincare recommendations, or hair care recommendations, or any other questions about our products. I'd love to help. Go ahead and like, follow, or subscribe to stay up to date with the rest of the series. I'm going to be trying to do a video every week. And thank you so much for following along. Bye.